Welcome back to Midwestern Perspective. I'm Thomas Martin. I'm down here in McCanda Township in Jackson County, Illinois. And as you can see, I'm reporting from my kitchen. Quite a humble kitchen. Going right into my living room. Not a very big place, but it works. So, what we're going to be discussing today is something that I saw on Facebook with the page Friend a Farmer. In fact, if you'd like to, you can go like Friend a Farmer. It's facebook.com/friendafarmer. The post today was about ethanol, and more in particular, ethanol subsidies, with the expiring of some of the subsidies, such as VTIC, the famous blender's credit. And the post posted a few different questions. And I'd like to kind of give my perspective on this. I'm going to be quite honest. I am a shameless apologetic for ethanol. I love ethanol. I use it in my Chevy HHR that I even call Ethel. I love filling up with E85 any chance I can. I'm also in absolute love with the FS station in Marion, Illinois, because they offer not only E85, but they offer several different blends in their blender pump. Enough about that. We want to keep these videos brief for you. So one of the questions is American corn-based ethanol really able to succeed without some of these subsidies? And I would argue yes and no. Yes, a walking contradiction, I know. It also brings up Brazilian sugarcane ethanol, yada yada yada. We always hear about these things, advanced biofuels, etc. And we actually saw recently a court decision overturning parts of the California low-carbon fuel standard, in part because they kind of put down Midwestern corn-based ethanol, not so much on the merits of, well, we shouldn't be using corn for ethanol, more so on the idea that we're using coal-fired power plants to generate electricity, to generate the power to run these ethanol plants, which is of concern. You know, we're trying to be renewable, green, etc. You know, can you use fossil fuels to do something that is then, you know, supposed to be green? And I think that is a valid argument. Something that we do need to look at. I've always believed that we need to look into getting a more sustainable energy base in this country. Namely, I'm a very big fan of nuclear energy, which I know automatically puts tremors on a lot of people. I think that we have shown, despite some unfortunate events, 3 Mile Island namely, that we can do nuclear in a safe, sustainable way, and that would provide us with a carbon-neutral way to produce ethanol in a way that is more green. That being said, I do think that we have to come with the grips that sugarcane is more efficient for ethanol production, simply in the fact that it is more full of sugar. I'd even argue that maybe we could start looking at things like sweet sorghum. Those types of crops are going to yield more energy per acre. I think that that is something that we have to kind of give when we're looking at some of this. That being said, America is not going to ever be able to really produce enough sugar efficiently. The key word there, efficiently. I'm not going to go into a long discussion about the sugar industry here in America. I will say this, though. I do have concerns with the idea that we should grow sugarcane in this country. I think it warrants research, by all means. And I'll get to research here in a bit. But I think that one of the problems we have is this idea that we should be hauling Brazilian sugarcane ethanol to the United States. So we're going to haul ethanol from South America throughout the United States. That seems a little ridiculous when we have the ability to produce ethanol here in the States already. Not going to hit on that too much more. You know, feel free to engage in discussion on that point. I think that we need to realize that we need to be able to do some of these things domestically and with countries that are favorable. We do need to look at every energy resource, yada yada yada. The same talking points that we always hear about energy. One of the things that I think that with the whole debate over, you know, do we need to be subsidizing ethanol, that gets lost in the fray is is basically our infrastructure in this country. Our infrastructure is no doubt good. We're falling behind. We need to come to grips with this. Also, the infrastructure for ethanol is just not in place. When you look at our oil industry, what do they have going across America? Pipelines. They have pipelines that are able to transport oil efficiently throughout the country, and I think that's a major key that ethanol and other renewable fuel sources just don't have available to them, is this infrastructure, much of it that was supported through the government. And this idea that we should just, cut off, all subsidies and government support for ethanol, I think that's kind of a brash move. I think that kind of forgets that we also need to be eliminating any energy subsidy if that's the case. To say that we should eliminate subsidies for ethanol but not for oil seems a little absurd in my book. Don't know, what do I know? That being said, I actually do really favor not so much subsidies, but continued funding for research. Continued research for things like the National Corn to Ethanol Research Center up in Edwardsville, Illinois. Ways to increase efficiency. I think that it is important that as Americans, we maintain both public and private funding of some of these renewable energy sources. We forget sometimes in this kind of state of politics that we need to slash everything. Slash subsidies, slash universities, slash, we just need to get rid of every government program. That's a little reckless in my opinion. And I think what we need to kind of focus back on is research in the public interest. And I think that it is in our best interest to continue research for some of these things. I do think, though, maybe this is unpopular for some other corn farmers and, people throughout the Midwest. I think that it is time that ethanol kind of stand on its own 2 feet, given proper infrastructure. And I think that that is really going to be the key, is seeing, are we going to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies and support of fossil fuels? And are we going to level the playing field through adequate infrastructure for renewable energy sources such as biofuels? And not just, of course, corn-based ethanol or sugarcane ethanol. I also would include biodiesel, both from soy, canola, you name it. I know Western Illinois University was doing some research on using different types of weeds for producing ethanol. And of course, cellulosic, always a buzzword. Continue research for that. I honestly have starting to get a little bit of a nihilistic perspective on that. But continuing research, we need that both publicly and privately. And I think that's really going to be the key as we move forward towards trying to achieve a better future for America. Really, we are addicted to oil. And it is always easy to say that we're addicted to Middle Eastern oil. I would point out we do use a lot of domestic sources, not as much as I might like to see. We do import a lot from Canada and Mexico. That oftentimes kind of gets forgotten because we're not at war or we don't have conflicting interests with the Canadians. Unless, of course, you're talking about hockey, in which case, well, yeah, we want to beat them. But I think what we need to do is really just take a step back from talking points and realize what is it that we can do to address the future. And sometimes that gets lost in the fray because the future is not something that's always tangible. And, I think that's really the struggle that we're going to face here. And I would love to hear some of your comments on how we can further our energy future. Maybe you disagree with biofuels. Let us hear about it. Again, down in the comments section, let us know how you feel about this subject. Also, again, check out Friend of Farmer on Facebook. Great conversations going on over there. Of course, always check us out on Facebook too. Just go to facebook.com/Midwestern Perspective. You'll find us there, as well as on Twitter. Just go to @MidWPerspective, and we'll keep you up to date with all of our videos. And again, reporting from McAnda Township, Illinois, I'm Thomas Martin.